Chapter 7, today and Thursday, okay? We just did the class exercise. So it's about thinking, language, and intelligence, all right? So thought, okay? Do you think?
Yes.
Yes, like we just did the exercise. You thought about the examples of each concept. That's your thought process, all right? So under thought, we have cognition, mental activities involved in acquiring, retaining, and using knowledge, okay? Thinking, manipulation of mental representations to draw inferences and conclusions. So like if you don't read the chapter before you come to class, what's going to happen?
You're not going to know what we're talking about. You're going to be left behind.
Right.
You're going to be unprepared.
Right. So that's your draw inferences. Right? If you read the chapter, you understand the concept better even, and also you can bring some examples too. All right? So that's the thinking process. Then mental image, representation of objects or events that are not present. So for instance, what is amusement park? Can you explain what it is?
It has different rides.
Different rides.
Coasters,
Yep.
all kinds of things.
Have you been to amusement park before?
Yes.
Yes. So you know how it looks like, right? So you can explain to me what kind of food they serve, what kind of rides they have, right? Okay, very good. So that's your mental image.
If you have like a photographic memory, like
Yes.
you're pretty good at that.
Exactly. It's related to chapter 6 too. Very good. All right. Concepts. The concept is the mental category of object or ideas based on shared properties, which we just did as an example, right? So the concept was active sports. Many of you came up with the examples of football, soccer, basketball, right? Okay. Formal concept meaning mental category formed by learning rules, and natural concept mental category formed by everyday experience. Okay. All right. So formal concept follows rigid rules not usually intuitive. For instance, a polygon is. So the definition. Natural concept result from everyday experiences too. So name some mammals, for instance.
Whales, elephants,
Yep.
humans.
Mm-hmm. So, okay. Remember we talked about what is the color of bananas? Yellow or green, right? If it's not ripe. But is it coming from formal concept or natural concept? Natural. We eat bananas. We have seen bananas at the grocery store, right? Okay. Good, guys. Logical reasoning, okay? It's under concept and thinking processes, okay? We have deductive reasoning and inductive reasoning, okay? So deductive reasoning, reasoning from the general to the specific. For example, start with a general statement, all cars have tires, okay? You can apply this general statement to specific instances and deduce that, for instance, a Ford Escort, Toyota Camry, and a Mercedes-Benz must have tires. So from all cars have tires, specific ones, such as Ford Escort, Toyota Camry. So that's called deductive reasoning, general to specific, okay? Review series of statements, okay? And arrive at the conclusion not contained in any single statement. So the example is here. Robin is funnier than Billy. Billy is funnier than Sinbad. Whoopi is funnier than Billy. Is Whoopi funnier than Sinbad? What's the answer, guys?
Yes.
Yes. Why do you say yes?
She's funnier than Billy, and Billy's funnier than Sinbad.
All right. So you read the statement and then you came up with the conclusion, although there is no statement saying Whoopi is funnier than Sinbad, right? Okay. Syllogisms, okay? Present to general premises that must be combined to see if a particular conclusion is true. All intro to psychology students love their instructor, okay? If the statement is the fact, all right? But that's the answer is yes. But if the statement is just personal opinions, what's the answer for this? It should be no, right? Okay. So I'm talking about the thought process. All right. So all chefs are violinists. Mary is a chef. Is Mary a violinist?
Yes.
Based on these statements, yes, right? Although going back to your point, all chefs are not violinists to begin with anyway. But we are assuming again, if the statement says so, we are following these logical explanations, then you come up with the answer, right? That's the thought process, guys, okay? To solve a syllogism, you might visualize the statement. All intro to psych students love their instructor. You are all intro to psych students. Must you love your instructor? If the statements are the fact, all right, the answer will be yes, 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 all right? Then, all intro to psych students love their instructor, but you are all biology students. Must you love your instructor? The answer is no. Syllogisms that are easy to visualize are more readily solved than more abstract syllogisms, okay? Don't worry, I'm just challenging you today, mentally and logically, all right? I have to do that sometimes because you don't read the chapters. Another one, we can solve these syllogisms by applying information to pre-existent schemas. Problem difficulty related to importance of problem to our lives and survival as species, too, biologically speaking. We're talking about evolutionary psych perspective. More relevant meaning, easier to solve, okay? Then inductive reasoning. It's opposite of deductive reasoning. Remember we talked about retroactive, proactive last week? Yeah? Okay. It's completely opposite from each other. This one too. Reasoning from the specific to the general, okay? 18, 16, 14, 12. And what's next? 10. Very good. What's the rule? Decrease by 2. All right? Why inductive reasoning? The opposite, right? Specific rules apply to the general numbers. All right? Take specific numbers and come up with a general rule, okay? That's why it's inductive reasoning. Then Sherlock Holmes is perhaps a better example of inductive reasoning than deductive reasoning. What did he do? Yeah, he gets the specific clues and come up with the general conclusion, right? Okay, so that's opposite of deductive reasoning. Very good. 7, 8, 16, 17. What's next? 34, 35, 25, 26. 4, 8, 5, 10. 6, 12. Okay. 7, 14. 720, 120, 24. What's next? What's the next number? Now you guys are quiet, huh? 6, 2, 1. 5, 10, 15, 20. Yep. 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55. What's the rule here? Increasing by 5s. Wrong. What is the correct rule? Any increasing number. The next number could be 87 or 62 or 1,000,006, right? So why did everyone guess the wrong rule? Why did you guys say increase by 5? Because it's like a set rule here, right? It's the pattern you see, right? 5, 10, 15, right? Okay. Then another one is called confirmation bias. Only search for information confirming one's hypothesis. Reading newspaper columnists who agree with our point of view and avoiding those who don't. Okay? Because we don't like it when someone disagrees with us, right? So there is Chris' story. Chris is 6'7", 300 pounds, has 12 tattoos, was a champion pro wrestler, owns 9 pit bulls, and has been arrested for beating a man with a chain. Is Chris more likely to be a man or a woman?
A man.
Who says a man? Who says a woman?
That's the woman that was.
Why can't she went from one to the other.
That's close.
A motorcycle gang member or priest?
Gang member.
Who says the gang member? And who says it's a priest? All right. So how did you make a decision?
Based on the description.
Based on the description, stereotype. Chris can be a woman, but because of the descriptions you read,
Makes most likely.
you guess more likely that Chris is a male rather than female, right? And many of you guessed that he is a motorcycle gang member rather than a priest because of the description, right? It's called confirmation bias. Another one, Steve. Steve is meek and tidy, has a passion for detail, is helpful to people, but has little real interest in people real-world issues. Is Steve more likely to be a librarian or salesperson?
Librarian.
Who says librarian? Okay, who says the salesperson? All right. Again, how did you come to your answer? Description, right? Okay, stereotypes. So this is called representativeness. Judge probability of an event based on how it matches a prototype. So Chris and Steve. The description matches certain types. Okay? Can be good, but can also lead to errors. So most will overuse representativeness. Okay? That is, Steve's description fits a vision of a librarian rather than salesperson. All right? And then most will underuse base rates too. Base rate meaning probability that an event will occur or fall into a certain category. So did you stop to consider that there are a lot more salespeople in the world than librarians? If you read it and then you say, yeah, that can be another way to think. By sheer statistics, there is a great likelihood that Steve is a salesperson rather than a librarian. Okay, but very few take this into account. All right? Then guess the probabilities. You don't have to really guess how many people die each year from heart disease, floods, plane crashes, asthma, and tornadoes. But you can just rank order them. Why people underestimate asthma's killing more people than flood and tornadoes?
In our mind, our thinking, we don't come to that.
Right. And also, what else?
When you don't think about how many do other things.
The other ones kill people in bunches, like
Yeah.
tornadoes.
Yeah, the
stuff like
impact that you
a lot of people die.
Right. Because unfortunately, if the plane crashes happen, many people can be killed at once. Like 250 people are killed at once. Right? And you can watch the news and they will report that immediately. There was a plane crash in Russia, for instance. All right? Tornadoes too, it makes the news, national news, right? But does asthma make national news? No. That's why people tend to underestimate the numbers of deaths from asthma. That's why. Okay? Judge probability of an event by how easy you can recall previous occurrences of the event. Most will overestimate deaths from natural disasters because disasters are frequently on TV. And the impact is big. Once it happens, many people can be killed at once. Okay? But most will underestimate deaths from asthma because they don't make the local news at all. All right? That's why. And word probabilities. Is the letter K most likely to occur in the first position of a word or the third position? Who says first? Who says third? Why many people didn't raise your hand? You have to guess. First position again. All right. More hands are seen. Okay. Third position. Okay, good. More position. Your hands are more clear. Very good. The answer is K is 2 to 3 times more likely to be in the third position. And I'll do the demonstration again, okay? Name words starting with K. Ni.
No. Knowledge.
Night, right? One except one who was adopted when she was only 5 days old baby. The other sisters-in-law I have all K names. Christina, Carrie, Keisha, all starts with K. All right. All right. Name words with the letter K in the third position. Cake, take, bake, make, take, like. Very good. Which one was easier to come up with? Actually, it's easier to recall words starting with K for many people. Okay, so people overestimate the number of words starting with K, although this class was opposite. Finish the sequence problems here. 30, 24, 18, 12, 6, 0. What's the rule here?
Going down by
6 every time.
Decrease by 6, okay? 1, 3, 2, 4,
Going up by 1, increasing by 1.
3, 5, 4, 6, right? Right? Increase by 2, decrease by 1, okay? How about this one? 2, 3, 10, 12, 13, 20, 21, 22, 29, 30, 31, 32, 39, 200, 201, 299, 300, 301, 302, 399, 2000. You might say, what the heck is this, right? The rule? Increasing numbers starting with the letter T.
Wow.
I know. Why it was difficult for you guys to come up with? Because you're stuck with the mathematics mode, right? Numbers. All right, how about the chess program? 2 grandmasters played 5 games of chess. Each won the same number of games and lost the same number of games. There are no draws in any of the games. How could this be so? That's a good answer.
Is that right?
No. I like the answer though. Anybody? It's good that you guys are paying attention to my lecture even more than usual today. You guys are good listeners, but today is even more. They didn't play against each other. Okay. Bar problem. A man walked into a bar and asked for a drink. The man behind the bar pulled out a gun and shot the man. Why should that be so? What did you say? The more people? Good. Well, with other class, someone said to me, the man said, give me a shot. That's why the guy shot him. But that was a good answer. I liked it. See, some of you said, me too. The man behind the bar wasn't the bartender. He was a robber, as you guys said. Okay. Bar problem number 2. A man who wanted the drink walked into a bar. Before he could say a word, he was knocked unconscious. Why?
Bar fight.
Bar fight. And then He was drunk? Okay. He walked into an iron bar, not a drinking establishment. Yeah, okay. I know. That's the purpose of the class today. 9 dots problem. So without lifting your pencil or retracing any line, draw 4 straight lines that connect all 9 dots. Can someone try that? You can use one of those pens. Yeah, go ahead. Anybody else? This is the answer to 9 dots problem. 1, 2, 3, 4. Without lifting, all the dots are connected. It's hard because it's a different thinking today. That's called mental sets. Why couldn't you solve the previous problems? A mental set, a well-established habit of perception or thought. We have to break those mental sets, okay? So for instance, number problem mental set, remember? Most people get stuck in the same rhyme, okay? Only view problems in terms of math formulas. Need to break out of this mental set to solve the problem, okay? 9 dots too. Most people will not draw lines that extend from the square formed by the 9 dots. To solve the problem, you have to break your mental set. Mounting candle problem too. Using only the object present on the right, attach the candle to the bulletin board in such a way that the candle can be lit and will burn properly. How do you do that? Marvin did it right, okay? Most people do not think of using the box for anything other than its normal use to hold the text, okay? And to solve this problem, you have to overcome functional fixedness, meaning just normal use of things that you use. Why couldn't you solve the previous problems? Mental set, a well-established habit of perception or thought. And also, we have to think outside of the box sometimes too, when you make decisions too. So single feature model meaning make a decision by focusing on only one feature. Additive model systematically evaluate the important features of each alternative. And the elimination by aspects, rate choices based on features, eliminate those that do not meet the desired criteria despite other desirable characteristics. So for instance, when you decide to buy a new computer or new smartphone, single feature model, you just say, I like iPhone. I'm not gonna go for any other smartphones. I just go for iPhone. That's single feature model. Additive model, you check the different brands and say, I like this iPhone, but there's a new one from Samsung. I saw my friend has one. It's bigger than iPhone, but it's, what do we call this, guys? Galaxy, the newest one. It has a little, like a pen too, that you can use. It's so nice. So you might check that. Maybe instead of iPhone, it's similar, but it's bigger and it has a pen, then maybe I will go for it. That's additive model, right? Elimination by aspect, rate choices based on features. So for instance, if you are very interested in voice command feature and you check different type of smartphones, then you decide which one has the best voice command feature than the others. Make sense to you when you make decisions like that? Okay, very good. How are language and thinking related? How is it related? When you speak your language, how is your thinking processed with that? Do you think when you speak? Or you just say it? Both? You do think, right? Before you speak, right? All right. And how about social perception? What is social perception? With others, right? So how do you act in front of different people, right? How does it relate to language? Do you change how to speak?
Yeah.
Yes, right?
Job interviews, friends.
Job interviews, friends. Excellent. Job interview, you'll be more professional oriented. With friends, you're going to be more casual oriented, right? Very good. Then how about language and gender bias? Do we use different types of languages with,
Sexual harassment at work.
yeah, sexual harassment at work? Yeah, you're definitely right. It can be male to female, female to male too, right? Okay. What else? It's related to gender role expectations too, which I will explain chapter 9 too anyway, okay? And animal communication, as you saw from the DVD clip, animals communicate in their own languages. It doesn't need to be as sophisticated as our language, but they have their own language too, okay? Very good. All right, language and thinking. Language is a system for combining arbitrary symbols to produce an infinite number of meaningful statements. So linguistic relativity hypothesis, okay, is the notion that difference among languages cause difference in the thoughts of their speakers. So how many of you speak more than 2 languages? Do you switch your thinking pattern when you speak different languages? Yes. Sometimes. Me too, I used to. I speak Japanese too. I used to think in Japanese first, then translate into English, and then vice versa. Nowadays, I just switch whenever I want to. It's much easier for me now, but at the beginning, I was switching back and forth more often. But you do think differently because, for instance, Japanese language and English language are so different that I have to kind of translate, not direct translation, but don't change the meaning, but we don't have the direct translations that I have to explain in a way that it makes sense to English speakers or Japanese speakers, right? Okay, very good. In animal communication, two animals clearly communicate with each other, but is that the language? And as you know, yes, it is the language, but it's not as sophisticated as ours. Some primates that have been trained demonstrate the same level of language comprehension as that of an average 2-year-old child, which is amazing. And non-primates can also acquire some language abilities. That is dolphins, as you saw, and then parrots. Okay. The intelligence, global capacity to think rationally, act purposefully, and deal effectively with the environment. Okay. So Binet is the one who developed intelligence test first, okay? So mental age, chronological age, and IQ, okay? Comparison of people in similar age groups, all right? Intelligence is the collection of higher order mental abilities loosely related to one another. But Binet did not rank normal students according to the scores, and he said intelligence is nurtured. What does it mean, nurtured? So it's not like biologically driven, but it's more environmentally driven, like it was taught. Because if there are many good people around the child, and then it's more, learning environment is more positive, they'll get it, like you just implied, okay? Very good. So Binet-Simon test developed in France in 1905, okay? Then Stanford Binet scale, modification of the original Binet-Simon after original came to the US. So IQ, child's mental age divided by child chronological age, and then multiplied by 100, okay? Used widely in the US, not as much as previously though, okay? We have the Wechsler's test, used more widely now than Stanford Binet test. That's modeled after Binet's test and also made an adult test. So we have Wechsler's test for children and adults too, okay? Then standardized, administered to large groups of people under uniform conditions to establish norms. So good thing and bad thing about standardized tests, right? Okay. The good thing is that standardized test is reliable because its ability to produce consistent results when administered on repeated occasions under similar conditions. And also valid because its ability to measure what the test is intended to measure. Okay. So overall scores converted to standardized scores. So there is a normal distribution. Basically, average is 100 because it's mental age divided by chronological age, then multiplied by 100. So if 10-year-old kid has 10-year-old mental age, okay, that's 100. But if 10-year-old kid has a 15-years-old mental age, then that kid IQ score is 150. All right. Then standard deviation of 15, meaning most people's IQ scores are ranged from 85 to 115, as you can see. Then more, 95%, we might have 70 to 130. But normal IQ scores range from 85 to 115 with average of 100. So how valid an IQ test? Test measures what's intended to measure. Does test correlate with other measures of same construct? For instance, school achievement, okay? IQ tests correlate highly because they are designed to test stuff that you learned in school. That's why. Also, if you get high IQ score, you tend to get prestigious positions, okay? On the job performance, other work-related variables too might be related to your high IQ, but it doesn't mean that their social abilities or like the way they communicate is as great as IQ, all right? Like you have heard about EQ, right? Emotional intelligence. People tend to, high in IQ, tend to have lower EQ. There are some people that they can have both high IQ and EQ, okay? But some people, they are book smart, but they're not street smart. Makes sense to you? And sometimes they can have both, okay? So what do IQ tests measure about your mind? Mental speed and span of working memory. Typically use a digit span test to measure this. So more recent studies find significant correlations between reaction times and IQ scores. I tried that too. About a few years ago, I took an IQ test. First time, I did it in maybe 2 minutes. My IQ score was 132. Second time, I took 10 minutes. My IQ went down 127. So reaction time, the quicker I answered, the higher the IQ test I got, the score. And the second time, same answers, right? I took 10 minutes instead of 2 minutes. My IQ score went down by 5 points because my reaction time was slower with the second one, okay? So why is this important? Mental quickness may expand capacity of working memory. That's why. But it's just only one aspect of intelligence, not all of them, okay? It's good that you have working memory. That's definitely helpful. But what happens, your task is critical thinking in more in-depth analysis. Your working memory doesn't help you much, right? You have to use long-term memory to come up with some in-depth analysis. So it depends. Then we have some theories of intelligence too. G-factor by Spearman, and then Louis Thurston said intelligence as a person's pattern of mental abilities. And then Gartner came up with multiple intelligence, which I agree with the most. And then Sternberg's tracking theory is very famous, okay? I'll explain both. So Howard Gardner, he's at Harvard. He came up with 8 different intelligence. They are linguistic, logical, mathematical, musical, spatial, bodily kinesthetic, interpersonal, intrapersonal, and naturalist intelligence. Everybody is intelligent in a very different way. So you might be, for instance, okay, you might be musical, bodily kinesthetic intelligent. Musical intelligence meaning ability to create, synthesize, or perform music. So it tend to be musician, composer, and singers. Okay? Body kinesthetic control body motions and capacity to handle objects skillfully. So it can be athlete, dancer, craftsperson. Okay, so different intelligence, different specialties. Make sense to you guys? Yes or no? Yes, okay, very good. Remember, everybody is intelligent, it's just a different way. So Sternberg too, he came with triarchic theory of intelligence. So triarchic means 3 different intelligence. One is analytic, mental processes used in learning how to solve problems. The second one is creative intelligence, ability to deal with novel situations by drawing on existing skills and knowledge. Then the last one is practical intelligence, ability to adapt to environment, street smart. So that makes sense too. All has to be balanced out to have it all, okay? Nature versus nurture in IQ. Are differences between people due to environmental or genetic differences? Why some people's IQ is higher than the other or lower than the other? Is it because of nature or nurture? Nurture, you say? Okay, why you say nurture?
Because it depends on what exactly you're exposed to. Some people don't have the same opportunities other people do.
Right, very true. So let's say twins, okay? I'm just using a hypothetical case. You're right. Twins have same genetic components to begin with, but let's assume that one is reared in such nice environment that books are always there. The caregivers are willing to spend time to do some crafts and the music and stuff. The other one, parents are not really involved with any learning processes. So which kid has higher IQ than the other? The first one. Because of the environmental issues, that's nurture. Very good. But it is nature and nurture to begin with, because some kids tend to have higher IQ to begin with because of the genetic components. If the parents had higher IQ, then they tend to have higher IQ too, but it doesn't mean that they keep up with the higher IQ. If the parents are too busy at work, they didn't spend nurturing home, okay? Like academically strong environment for the kids, then the IQ will be much, much lower than they started. That happens, okay? IQ scores can fluctuate like that, okay? Very good. So, it's a misunderstanding question because you shouldn't be nature versus nurture, okay? Is a person's intelligence due more to genes or to environment? As you all know, both genes and intelligence crucial for any trait, okay? So nature and nurture, especially nurture, is a bigger part because biologically, like we talked about depression, for instance, from the other chapters, if the parents are depressed, you might have that genetic component, but it doesn't mean that you're going to be depressed, right? Because of the environmental factor. So environmental factor is actually bigger than to begin with, biologically, okay? Heredity and environment. Heritability, degree to which variation in trait stems from genetic rather than environmental differences among individuals. Environment, degree to which variation is due to environmental rather than genetic differences, all right? So twin studies and family influence, okay? If trait genetic, closely related, more similar than less closely related. Many close relatives share environments too. So we have different types of studies to separate effects. So identical twins reared together, identical twins reared apart, sibling or non-identical twins reared together or apart, and then adaptive sibling reared together, okay? You can see genetic overlap, 100% identical twins reared together, okay? Identical twins reared apart, okay? And then non-identical twins reared together, siblings, okay? Reared together and apart, and so forth. So as you can see, differences in IQ score shows effect of environment, as you said, rather than genetics, all right? Very good. So, as you saw from the DVD too, racial differences are there in IQ. Racial difference in average IQ among different racial groups can be measured, and more variation in IQ scores within a particular group than between groups. Meaning, within one particular group, like international student, the variation might be more within that group than between different groups. Make sense to you? So let's say international students from European countries and Asian countries. And because of the language barriers, they took the IQ test in English. European students tend to score higher than Asian students because European students already studied English. They speak English as a native language than Asian students. So the differences of the score might be bigger in that group rather than comparing American-born, American-raised students versus international students. Make sense to you? Very good. Okay. So each cornfield planted from same package of genetically diverse seeds. One field is quite fertile, but the other one is not. Within each field, differences due to genetics because it starts with the same package of genetically diverse seeds. But between each field, differences can be due to environment because one is fertile and then the other one is not. Makes sense to you? Other influences on IQ scores. Cross-cultural studies show that average IQ of groups subject to social discrimination are often lower than socially dominant group, even if there is no racial differences. So tests reflect the culture in which they are developed. Cultural factors also influence test-taking behavior too. So again, like language barrier can be a big factor here. Or within our culture, if some minorities are considered lower than Caucasian Americans, and they might be scoring higher because of those stereotypes or discrimination against them. Okay. There are some studies too that African American students scored lower than Caucasian Americans in terms of, I think that was the sports test, but not the real, like a physical test, but the written test, because they have these stereotypes that white people tend to do better on the papers, and the black people tend to better with the physical strengths. But it's a stereotypes. It's not, it doesn't matter the skin color. If someone, Caucasian American with fair skin might be good at physical, but not good at with writing. And the opposite, the person with dark skin might be better with the written form rather than physical form. So it's not because of the nationality or the color of the skin, but that because of the stereotypes. Okay? And the other one too, gender too. Okay, I'm going to talk about it in chapter 9, but I'm going to just tell you as an example. When female students are told that with this mathematics test, there are no gender differences, they took the test, mathematics test. They scored almost the same, so no gender differences. But the other group was told that with this mathematics test, males scored higher than females. And guess what happened? The ones who were told that females scored lower than males, they tended to score lower than males because that was what they heard. Okay? So they kind of took the stereotypes and applied to themselves. That happens with the race too, ethnic groups too. All right? All right. So the last one, creativity. This chapter was about your thinking, thought processes, right? Intelligence. And then I tricked you many times with those tests or little exercises. But the lesson is think outside of the box. Be creative, okay? Use the creative thinking. So to enhance your creativity, set creativity as a goal or reinforce creative behavior, engage in problem finding, acquire relevant knowledge to use it for problem solving skills and try different approaches. If you get frustrated with one approach, switch to other stuff, okay? And exert effort and expect setbacks too. So be realistic about the problem solving, all right? So that was chapter 7.